This is the Brewers POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Milwaukee Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Brewers dominating the Chicago Cubs in Game 1 of this National League Divisional Series. This one by a final score of 9-1. Hello, everyone, and welcome into the victorious edition of the Locked On Brewers Playoff Postcast Edition. My name is Brandon Snide. You can follow me on X, formerly Twitter, at Brandon_Snide. Lots to get to today after a Game 1 win for our Brewers. Freddy Peralta absolutely lights out. We'll talk about the pitching. Jackson Chourio on fire at the plate, later leaves in the game. We'll talk about that, and the Brewers bats just absolutely respond in such a big way in this one. And the Brewers, more importantly than anything, get that Game 1 victory in the best of 5 over the Chicago Cubs at American Family Field. Once again, this one by a final score of 9-3. And of course, your thoughts, your opinions, maybe some of your concerns after a Jackson Chourio injury, and certainly some of your celebrations are all welcomed on the program today as the Brewers dominate the Chicago Cubs. Let's kick things off today with our scoring summary brought to you by Prize Picks and FanDuel. And it did not take long in this one, ladies and gentlemen, for the scoring to get started. Real quickly, before we go on, raise your hand if you were worried after the Cubs went up 1-0 because Michael Busch, the leadoff hitter today for the Cubs, goes yard against Freddy Peralta at the first batter he sees, almost 400 feet, 389 to be exact. Freddy Peralta giving up the early home run, but that would be it for the Cubs in the first inning. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, in this one, the Brewers wasted no time responding, and that brings us to our turning point.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
So this one got very interesting very quickly, and it was good news for the Brewers. 3 straight doubles in that first inning would get things going. And Jackson Chourio starting the Brewers off, setting the tone in this one. A leadoff double down the left field line would get the hitting party started for the Brewers. It would be a Chourio double. It would be a Bryce Terrain double. Chourio would score. It would be a William Contreras double. Terrain would then score. Frelick would be safe on a throwing error from Nico Horner at second base. That would score a run. That would make it 3-1. Now keep up with me, guys, okay? Perkins then would single. Blake Perkins getting the start today. He would single to center field. The Brewers would then bat Jackson Chourio again. All 9 batters coming to the plate for our Milwaukee Brewers in the first inning. Chourio would then have another hit in the same inning. He already had a double in. He would single to left field. That would score a couple of runs. It is 6-1 after 1 for our Brewers. They chase out Matthew Boyd. I didn't even mention that during half of that scoring. Matthew Boyd could only get 2 outs in this one. So he exits the game, 2/3 inning pitch. Matthew Boyd getting the start, which was also questionable if you're a Chicago sports fan. And I know a lot of them were, because Matthew Boyd had pitched in the wild card series. He only threw 58 pitches in that game, but it was just a few days ago. Matthew Boyd out of this one before 3 outs secured. He threw 30 pitches. He only secured those 2 outs, as we've talked about. 4 hits, 4 runs. The Brewers would plate 6 total in that first inning. And then it wouldn't stop there. The Cubs shut down in the second inning. We're still on the turning point. Need you guys to stay with me. We're still on the turning point in this one. The first inning would end with the Brewers up 6-1. I'm not sure. I wasn't there. I was watching the game on the television broadcast. I'm not sure through the television broadcast I've ever heard, I guess maybe the wild card series last year when the Brewers won that game 2, I think it was, against the Mets. But I'm not sure I heard American Family Field, the pop, like I heard it in that first inning where the Brewers plated 6 runs. That would bring us to the second inning once again. Caleb Durbin with a hit would score a couple of runs. A bloop out there to center field with guys in scoring position would score. Andrew Vaughn would score. And then the Brewers once again in the second inning, Jackson Chourio, an infield single to third. And this is the scary part, I guess, for Jackson Chourio, is he would exit the game after running to first base. Well, we do not have any information on Jackson Chourio. It's the same hamstring injury. Unfortunately, he hurt in July against the same Cubs team. But he would leg one out to first base, where that would score a run. That would give the Brewers a 9-1 advantage. And from that point forward, Freddy Peralta, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely dealing in this one for our Milwaukee Brewers. Again, gives up a home run to Michael Busch. Give Michael Busch credit. He also had a big home run in the wild card series in Game 3 against the San Diego Padres. So you knew these Cubbies weren't going to go away. Like, we're going to, go away in this game. But for the most part, Freddy Peralta made that happen. Ian Happ later in the 6th inning for our Brewers would have a solo home run, and then Nico Horner in the 8th inning would also have a solo home run. So if I told you, I think Ron Darling also talked about this on the program. If I told you at the end of this that the Cubs hit 3 home runs and the Brewers did not hit a single home run, you would probably be asking, if you didn't watch the game or know what the final score was how bad did the Brewers lose? But it was the complete opposite for the Brewers. After those first 2 innings, that was the turning point in this one. They scored all 9 of their runs in the first 2 innings of this game. 9 total runs, 10 hits, 3 walks, 7 for 14 with runners in scoring position were our Milwaukee Brewers in the first 2 innings. 7 for 14. I'm telling you right now, if this team, that is probably a very unrealistic number, certainly in the first 2 innings of a ball game. But if the Brewers can maintain and have a little bit of that going forward, they are going to be a very, very difficult team to beat. And it was certainly an interesting start to the game. I'm going to tell you right now, I was not feeling great after the Michael Busch home run. I obviously knew there was a ton of game yet to be played. It certainly wasn't over after one batter, but you were a little bit worried about maybe some of the rust, the rest that the Brewers have had. Maybe there was a little bit of that in this game. The Cubs coming off an emotional 3-game wild card series win over the Padres at Wrigley Field. They were quote unquote the underdogs in this series. I think a lot of people have picked the Cubs, and certainly the sports books have flopped to the Cubs side, but it felt like this was such a big game for the Brewers for so many reasons. You had to win this ball game. If you're a Brewers fan, we all know that. In a 5-game series, to win the first game, it's bigger, obviously, in a 3-game series for obvious reasons. You put the team on an elimination brink right after winning the first one. But the first one, to me, is the biggest in a 3 and 5 game series. Not so much as important in a 5-game series because you're going to have to travel regardless, but it's so pivotal for this team to get this victory because you had that week off without playing. You had a Cubs bullpen that had been taxed. You chased Matthew Boyd after the first inning. You piled on runs. The Brewers hit no home runs in this one, guys. No home runs. They had a few close calls. No home runs in this one, and they scored 9 runs. Belt to the backside for the Cubs today. 13 hits and 9 runs for the Milwaukee Brewers offense. But now you put the pressure back on the Chicago Cubs. Their pressure was on Milwaukee in this one. I think we can all agree with that one. The pressure was certainly on the Milwaukee Brewers after having that week off, having your bullpen well rested, aligning all your pitchers, right? We saw them, have Freddie with a short start, 2 innings, his last regular season appearance. And you had to go in. You had the upper hand in this one. There's no doubt about it on paper, certainly, and health-wise as well. But now you make game 2 an absolute must-win for the Chicago Cubs. It is without question, a must-win game for the Chicago Cubs. And it was really awesome today to see the Brewers bats come alive. Jackson Chourio, 3 for 3. We'll talk about him later on in the show. Bryce Terrain, big at-bats in that first inning, 2 for 5. An underrated part in this game, Blake Perkins, 2 for 4. And Blake Perkins may have had the at-bat of the day. The at-bat of the day in that first inning. 11 pitches he saw from Matthew Boyd, and he gets an RBI single up the middle to score a few runs. Blake Perkins, I'm telling you, there was some of you guys that weren't necessarily sure about him on the playoff roster, or would you see him? Dude's a baller, man. I mean, he just balls out. Every time he's into a game, he produces, whether it's offensively today, like we saw, if it's defensively, we've seen so many times. Blake Perkins, it was awesome to see a big at-bat there in that first inning. Andrew Vaughn with a hit, Christian Yelich with a hit, William Contreras, we talked about him starting the game off with a double. He had 2 hits on the day. A great performance today, obviously, offensively for our Milwaukee Brewers. 13 total hits, 9 runs. Most importantly, getting the 9-3 victory in game 1 of this 5-game series of the National League Divisional Series. So much yet to get to on the program, including my Locked On Brewers victorious postcast player of the game. That's up after this. Today's victorious Brewers Locked On Brewers postcast player, is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to your football season. You just pick more or less on player projections, like maybe Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and boom, you are into the game. Download the PrizePick app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, that's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Today's victorious Locked On Brewers postcast also brought to you by our wonderful friends over at FanDuel. And of course, you heard me earlier, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that first $5 bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put $5 down, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started right now. Once again, that's FanDuel.com. A belt to the backside for the Cubs at American Family Field as the Brewers roll in game one. This one by a final score of 9-3. Lots of offense, lots of pitching. Without further ado, let's dive into our Locked On Brewers postcast player of the game.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
All right, it's the playoffs, guys. Don't consider this a cop-out, but it's the playoffs. We're going to have two, especially when you win 9-3 in game one. How do you not talk about Jackson Chourio in this one? And I know we mentioned his name before, and we'll talk about him with his injuries concerned as well. Jackson Chourio starting, he set the tone in this one right away. Jackson Chourio, without a doubt, set the tone in this one. Getting that leadoff double, he would eventually come around to score 3 for 3 before he would exit. Guys, he set a postseason record today. 3 hits in the first 2 innings of a playoff game. Jackson Chourio in the record books at 21 years old, 3 for 3. And again, 3 runs batted in. And the most important thing for me, obviously runs batted in are important, but it's just setting the game up, the vibe, after a leadoff home run from Michael Busch, setting that game and getting the vibes back right at American Family Field. That home crowd was ready, mostly Brewers fans. Kudos to all you Brewers fans that kept your tickets. It was so important for the Brewers to bounce back after that Michael Busch home run. And how many times have we talked about this, right? Like, Brewers get punched in the jaw. Guess what? They bounce right back and they fight back all game long. It's exactly what they did. They see a ball go over the right field fence from Michael Busch. The Cubs are quickly up 1-0 on the Brewers ace before they have one out, and Jackson Chourio comes to the plate at the bottom of the first inning. He's the leadoff hitter today for the Brewers, and he leads the game off with a double, and then 2 more doubles would follow after him. And the Brewers, before you know it, 6 runs in that first, 3 in the second with another RBI single from Jackson Chourio. So he gets 1A Locked On Brewers victorious postcast player of the game. And Freddy Peralta, ladies and gentlemen, Freddy Peralta, he will likely not win the Cy Young, but will probably be in the conversation with some votes. 5 2/3 innings pitched, 9 strikeouts for Freddy Peralta. He would give up 4 total hits, 2 would be earned, 9 strikeouts over 95 pitches. He ties Don Sutton, Giovanni Gallardo, and Brandon Woodruff for the franchise record in a single postseason game. Freddy Peralta, the Brewers needed their ace. The Brewers got their ace. He was absolutely fantastic in this one, and just a standing ovation, if I could, while I'm sitting behind the microphone for Freddy Peralta, because it didn't start off great, and there's no denying that. It did not start off great for Freddy Peralta with that solo home run, but he settled into the game, guys. He gets the victory today. He gets the Brewers set up for success in this 5-game series against the Cubs in the National League Divisional Series, and was absolutely lights out. So hats off to Freddy Peralta. Jackson Chourio, obviously on the offensive side of the ball, getting things going. And speaking of Jackson Chourio, let's talk about the things you'll probably be talking about tomorrow after a 9-3 game 1 win.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Tough one for Jackson Chourio. This was a very emotional game for a handful of different reasons. Obviously, the Brewers getting the victory. Obviously, we talked about the start, kind of an up and down first inning because you're down, that they go, fall down 1-0 early in this one, but then they score all 9 runs in the first 2 innings and they beat the Cubs 9-3 in this one. And Jackson Chourio would exit in this one. And that is the only blip on the radar, I should say, for the Brewers in this one. That's the only thing that you're walking away from this game where you're like, man, it could have been just a perfect game had that not happened. The concern I have with the injury, it's the same hamstring injury. I did not like the body language from Jackson Chourio, punching his helmet. Didn't look like he was happy. Maybe the optimistic point of view, maybe he was mad that they were pulling him. He thought maybe he could continue. The other side of the glass is maybe he knows something happened with that hamstring. Obviously, we'll probably hear later on, either today, tomorrow. The good news for the Brewers is an off day on Sunday, and it's a night game on Monday. That's the good news. So it allows him to maybe let that thing settle. Maybe, he's able to work through it and be a part of this team going forward. But he is so important to this organization, obviously, for so many different reasons. But what he does defensively and offensively is obviously part of the Locked On Brewers postcast player of the game, going 3 for 3, batting in 3 runs, setting a postseason record at 21 years old. You just hope going forward, it's not a serious injury for Jackson Chourio. It's hard not to obviously be atop of your mind when you see him leave that game so early in the game too. And thankfully the Brewers at that point, we didn't know it, but it felt like it. They certainly had the game up 9-1. They had the game in control and pretty much locked down. And that would come to fruition later in the game where they would shut things down. But you hope for good news from Jackson Chourio, but we are going to be talking about it tomorrow. I'm sure we'll be talking about it at the dinner table later tonight. We'll probably be talking about it while football's on tomorrow, and hopefully the Brewers do get some good news. I'm scouring social media as we discuss here on the show, but I do not see any actual update yet from the Brewers. Murph actually saying that he's undergoing an MRI. Manager Pat Murphy saying, quote, obviously it's real scary having that hamstring injury to the same leg. We're hoping it's something he can come back from soon. It could be devastating. That absolutely is not great to hear. So that is manager Pat Murphy on Jackson Chourio, once again, who is undergoing an MRI on that leg. But we'll monitor the situation and we'll see what happens with Jackson going forward for the Brewers. Let's begin with your thoughts, your reactions, your celebrations after a 9-3 Milwaukee Brewers win. Cody, what a way to respond to a huge series with a giant punch to the nose. We can't ever seem to catch a break with Chourio, but hey, we rolled 14 straight without him. No reason we can't rise up and go. And that's the thing. I was texting with a buddy as well. Look, it's not ideal, guys. You obviously want Jackson Chourio to continue playing, but this Brewers team, it's not like they have not been here before, right? They did set the franchise record for most wins in a row. Jackson Chourio going out of that series late in July against this same Cubs team, exits the game in this one as well early, but the Brewers played without him. They filled it in. Blake Perkins, we mentioned his name once on the show. He stepped up in such a major way for this Brewers team when Jackson Chourio went out. We obviously have seen a lot of Isaac Collins throughout the course of the year, so let's hope, maybe he's ready to step out. But it was absolutely devastating, as Pat Murphy used the term devastating, to see him leave after going 3 for 3, batting in 3 runs, setting a postseason record for 3 hits in the first 2 innings of a game. And it's tough to see, and you hope he does, his body bounces back in good fashion going forward. Eddie, we won, but also lost because Chourio, he was a huge part of the scoring there in the first inning. I think there's going to be a dark cloud over this Brewers win. It certainly feels like it. I know winning 9-3 is great. The Brewers pretty much had this game won after 2 innings, but then seeing Chourio leave was such a gut punch because of what he did. Not only who he is, but like what he did in this game. Charles, Chourio score aside, that was unbelievably fulfilling. Cubs 3 home runs, Brewers 0. You score 9-3. Take that, national media. Just plain old hitting can win a game. Yeah, again, everybody likes to not pick the Brewers and be concerned about if the Brewers can do this, if the Brewers can do that. Can they score enough runs? They only led Major League Baseball in run differential all year. They've only done this with all these guys hurt, including, as we just mentioned, Jackson Chourio in this one. So it's not like this is something new for this team. This is not something that the Brewers can't do as our everyday or woodworking outdoorsman says. The announcers, he's talking about the television broadcasters, couldn't handle the fact the Brewers scored 9 runs without a home run. Yeah, Ron Darling was, kept asking if it's something that can be kept, can they keep doing it? Well, Ron, they literally have done it all year. Like, they don't have a guy over 30 home runs. Yelich had 29, right? Like, welcome to Milwaukee Brewers baseball. Welcome to Murph ball. That's what it is. 9 runs, 10 hits, 3 walks, 7 for 14 in the first 2 innings with runners in scoring position in this one, and they scored 9 runs. So I don't know if that is something they can keep up, but it certainly is something this team has done all season long. That's not debatable, Ron. Dominic, over on YouTube, Chourio is a future league MVP. Let's hope he can come back in this series if needed, or maybe just rest him if we continue to win until necessary. The big thing will be game 2, right? If the Brewers are without Jackson Chourio, and my instincts are telling me they're not going to have Jackson Chourio in game 2. And if the Brewers are able to win that game, then I think you probably just sit Jackson Chourio in this series. If you can't get a win in your last 3 games out of a 5-game series, then you probably weren't good enough to win anyway with Jackson Chourio. And hopefully you just kind of prepare for if the Brewers do advance. And I'm not saying the Brewers are going to roll in game 2 like they did today. I'm not saying they're going to win game 2. Obviously, you take it game by game, out by out, at bat by at bat. But I do not anticipate, maybe he's able to fulfill in some sort of a DH role. I just don't anticipate that the Brewers will have Jackson Chourio in this one, in game 2 for this one. Mike, over on YouTube, all you Brewers fans who sold your seats to these Cubs fans should be ashamed of yourself. I thought there was a good amount of Brewer fans overpowering Cubs fans. A couple of beat reporters saying 75-25, 80-20 I saw. So as Jeffrey over on YouTube also says, there were not as many Cubs fans at the game as usual. So that's good news. I thought the Brewers did pretty good. I thought the crowd was awesome. I thought it was just absolutely electric. Obviously when the Busch home run goes over and then you're able to respond that the way they did, that there's no surprise. Manuel over on YouTube says player of the game, this all capital letters, says is Freddy Peralta. I don't know how. I mean, Jackson Chourio, because he set a postseason record, he's got to be talked about. I thought he got the vibes back in order for this Brewers team, so he gets the nod. But Freddy Peralta was just lights out. 5 2/3, as we had talked about, only giving up 2 earned runs, 4 hits, 9 strikeouts, tying a franchise record for Ks in a postseason game. Just awesome to see from Freddy Peralta. Just really awesome to see. Sloth over on YouTube, if it isn't serious or nowhere near as bad as last time, since he looked fine walking back into the clubhouse, give him a shot and come back in game 3. Obviously the body language didn't look great. He was punching his helmet, not happy, tossing, had his head back kind of in disbelief almost. The last thing you want them to do is to roll him out if he goes and something further happens. He tears it off the ball. I don't know. Like, it could be, make it worse to where you're putting his offseason in jeopardy and maybe not ready for, preparing for the next year. But with all that being said, the most important thing in this game, Jackson Chourio getting hurt wasn't great. The Brewers won a freaking playoff game, and they did it in domination, and absolutely domination. They beat the Cubs 9-3 in this one. They take a 1-0 series lead over the Cubs, and we'll see what happens with Jackson Chourio. We'll find out probably later today, probably tomorrow, maybe even into Monday. Game 2 not set for till Monday evening, so the Brewers do have a little bit of time in between that, but we'll see what happens. But the most important thing, the Brewers getting the victory today, 9-3, and take that 1-0 series lead. That'll do it for today's show. My thanks to each and every one of you. Thank you guys for always making Locked On Brewers part of your day each and every day. Friendly reminder, wherever you get audio podcasts, you can get this in audio podcast as well. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get audio podcasts, you can get this very one. Also over on YouTube, if you're over on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, hit that notification bell, get notified when we go live, and we will go live once again after game 2 on Monday evening. My name has been Brandon Snide. We'll talk to you again after the game on Monday. And as always, win, lose, or draw, it certainly feels so much better when you win 9-3 in game 1 of the NLDS. But it is always go Brewers. Have a good one, everyone. See you.